Hi again. I've actually decided to do a second video tonight purely because I'm in the mood. And what I'm going to talk about in this video is how to make things better for our child with autism or an autistic spectrum disorder. Now, I warn you up front that I might say some things that you might not like. But each to his own. I'm not here to offend anyone or insult anybody. This just works for me, and I've spoken to a lot of parents and a lot of carers about this very subject. So here we go. When you first realise that your child has an autistic spectrum disorder, your life really can sort of fall apart initially, and it's devastating, to think that your child is going to sort of go through life with various problems that you can't sort of wave a magic wand at. And I think sometimes, probably all times, our protective instinct can take over somewhat. But I think we all have to be really, really careful to keep that in check. Now, what I'm talking about here is being overprotective. Now, as many of you do, I'm sure, I do a lot of reading, around the subject of autistic spectrum disorders, Asperger's, autism, etc. And, we'll have read many of the articles and books and listened to the lectures available, or even been to see lectures in person, by the likes of Wendy Lawson and Temple Grandin, etc. Just to name two sort of quite famous people who have autistic spectrum disorders. And if I'm not wrong, I believe that, Wendy Lawson was classed as being quite autistic, quite sort of low achieving as a child. And I think also the same might have been said for Temple Grandin, both of whom had, huge problems. Now, when you look at these two individuals today, you can see just how far they've come. They're both very, very educated women. They've both written, copious amounts of books, research papers, and they've given an awful lot to the sort of scientific and medical community, if you like, and on the subject of autism, real experts in autism. To coin a phrase from one of my other videos, speaking from their experience, using their words, very, very powerful stuff. And the reason I'm talking about these two individuals, and if these two individuals were to be looking at my video, I'd be really impressed. And, if anybody knows them, and, I hope I'm not treading on their toes, basically, by saying this. But, it seems to me that, if you have two people who are quite profoundly affected by autism at a young age, how do you get from that to that? And the way it happens is by exposure to life and perseverance and hard work. Now, often I get phone calls and I get emails and I speak to people in person, regarding sort of, people's children with an autistic spectrum disorder. And, often people will say to me, mums and dads will say to me, well, the thing is, my child's more autistic than your children. I'm not sure what they mean by that, really, whether they mean lower functioning. But what I always tell them the story of my children, about how they were and how they are now, because just like any child who's neurotypical, i.e. one who hasn't got an autistic spectrum disorder. Children grow and develop, all children. And it's really important, if a child's got an autistic spectrum disorder, to really sort of push that development, because it's so much harder. Now, I'm not saying that a child who is profoundly autistic, who has no speech, no communication, etc., etc., I am not going to say, sit here now and tell you that your child will be the next Einstein or Bill Gates or Stephen Hawking or whoever. I can't say that. And if your child is grossly anxious and, is scared of his own shadow or her own shadow, or if your child is aggressive because they can't cope with life, I'm not going to tell you where they'll be in 5, 10, 15, 20, 30 years. All I can tell you is that with careful handling, teaching and exposure, your child will make progress. And if you don't believe me, then just look around you at some of the people out there who are, famous, again, want of a better word, and just see how far they've come. Now, lots of times parents will say to me, oh, my child's, much more profoundly autistic, like I said before, we can't do that. We can't go places. We can't, and sometimes it becomes a bit of a self-fulfilling prophecy. Now, what I mean by that is that, sometimes we can tell ourselves how hard it is having a child with autism, and it can be really hard. But we can't just sort of wrap our kids up in cotton wool. I know of a lady, she's similar age to me, I think. And she was chatting to me recently, and, her son is at college, and she goes everywhere with her son. They socialise together. They go shopping together. They go out for dinner together. It's like they are married. Now, that's great that she's got a really good relationship with her son. It's great to have that. I love going out with my kids. But they also need to develop their own life. And when these kids are at college, they need to go out with their peers, and they need to learn how to fit into this big neurotypical world that we all live in. And I think sometimes we have to cut the apron strings and let our children go. And it's really, really hard. My eldest daughter's going to university in September, and I am terrified. I'm just terrified, but I know she'll be okay. She has to be. That's life. Just as my other friends who've got children going off to university, they're all scared too. Probably for different reasons, but, it's part of growing up. Now, it is difficult when children are young, because often our kids don't get invited to parties, they don't get invited to sleepovers, they don't get invited to all the day-to-day stuff that neurotypical children get invited to, and take part in. But that doesn't mean that we can't expose them to that. Get your kid out there, talk about autism to your friends. Don't become an autism bore, like I've become. But, try and sort of find a path and try and get your child to socialise, try and get your child to mix, because, they have to do that. They have to sort of fit in. They're not an extension of you, and it's really unfair to sort of hang on to them. And I think sometimes we spend so much time dealing with problems that arise regarding, education, health, all these different issues. And we spend so much time, and often our own lives sort of disintegrate at the edges. And then when our children sort of get to a certain age, all that we've got is this, you know, this sort of autism, and it's really hard to let it go, but let it go we have to, you know. This is how we help our children to improve. You know, we put them into situations that are challenging. You know, we put them into situations that are challenging with support. So yes, fight for support, fight for them to be educated in the right provision, but let them be educated properly. You know, let them try clubs. They might hate it, but they might like it, you know. Let them try all these different things that you think that they might not be able to cope with. Let them get on with it. Let them have a go. It's really, really important. This is how we help our children to develop. And, you know, for those, I've no experience with really low functioning autism. That's not my thing. And I sort of feel a bit sort of odd speaking about it, really, because it's sort of very different to where I'm coming from. But, you know, just because you're not getting communication back from your child doesn't mean you stop reading to them, doesn't mean you stop playing with them, you know. And it's the same right across the spectrum, you know. Talk to your kids about everything, you know, give them goals to look forward to, you know. Every one of us, whether we're autistic or not, can achieve things far beyond what we believe we can achieve. And it's really important to encourage that in every aspect of life. So, in my opinion, and the whole purpose of sort of this video, if you like, is to say to people, don't hold your children back because that's what you've become used to. Don't let your children be limited, not by autism, but by you. Let your children fly, give them their wings to fly. You know, let your children sort of taste the world, if you like. You know, it's getting a bit romantic now, isn't it? But it's really important. And I'm saying this because, again, so many people say to me all the time, you know, oh, how did you fight for your child to, you know, go to a specialist school? How did you manage to get an adapted timetable for that child? You know, how did you manage to do that? You know, oh, you must be, you know, you must be better than me, and, you know, my child can't do that, my child can't do this. Yes, they can, or possibly they can, but at least give them the chance to try. Don't hold your children back because of autism. They are not autism, they have autism. You know, it's really, really important that we allow our children to become really valuable members of society, and pampering them and giving in to their every whim and letting them believe that they're not as good as other people because of autism is not the way to go. You know, if a child, you know, a teenager is going off to college, they need to be able to learn to cook, to clean, to do their own ironing, to do their washing. Teach them how to do it, just like any other teenager. Will they like it? No, because teenagers can be inherently lazy, and mine will kill me for saying that. You know, that's nothing to do with autism. That's to do with being a teenager. Let your kids learn exactly the same things as neurotypical kids. If and when they need support, then give them the support they need, but don't hold them back. You know, keeping your children at home with you forever, it isn't fair on them. You know, let them taste the world. I think that's what I'm saying. Right, okay, that's it for tonight. I'm really tired now, so I'm going to log off, and I'm going to just put this out there to see what you think. Let's say, don't be offended. This is just my opinions. That's all, really.